Hi there, I'm Sham. Welcome to UnScene. In this show, we will explore LED walls, technology from the gaming sector that is being incorporated in filmmaking, television, and theatre. Phil Ross from Pro Screens will talk about how the technology will change things for the future. And later we will chat with Jonathan Raymond about the effects in corporate production, and then we'll catch up with Charlotte Watson. But first, Matt Osborne, who designs and creates for LED screens, explores the best ways to utilise the technology in cinema and television. Is it nice to be in front of the camera for a change, or is it a little bit...
It's weird.
It's weird. I appreciate the honesty. So, you're here today to tell us a little bit about these brand new LED screens that we've got at the Alex Theatre. So, how long has this technology been around?
That's a good question. I don't actually know. It's been around a while, but I think it's really started to snowball in the last few years as the tech's gotten cheaper and higher and higher quality LEDs.
Yeah. So when you got older and you started progressing in the industry, what were some of your, I guess, favourite gigs to work on, favourite projects?
It's a tough question.
Yeah? Okay, give me top three.
I've done some dance parties overseas and they're pretty big. They're definitely a much bigger scale than what we've got here.
Yeah.
So that's pretty mind-blowing, just the number of people involved and what's actually going in there, what's possible. But in the theatre stuff, I've done some really cool, low-key theatre things, but really creative directors. So really challenging, and they're really open to kind of incorporating new tech into their shows and running with it, which is great because it's kind of a scary thing to some people. They don't want to change stuff, they want to keep it as traditional as possible.
Yeah, definitely. Have you used much of this tech in musicals?
I've been trying to. I did Wicked once with it.
Oh, yeah.
Which was great because we could change the whole show sets the way through. I pushed really hard to get it in there and to use it not as a background but as different set elements.
Yeah.
It's a scary thing. I think for people to visualise how it's going to be used without actually seeing it's very hard because when it's got nothing on it, it is just a blank canvas. So it freaks out set designers. I think it's a huge leap of faith for people to leave that with you.
Definitely, especially because I think like within the world of musical theatre, people are so used to seeing like a rolling physical set, and there is a sense of like spectacle in seeing how fast you can change set, right? And yes, this is like lightning fast changes, but it's a very different feel. Yeah,
and you're leaving a lot of it up till seeing what it's actually going to look like on stage, unless you've got a lot of pre-vis stuff. It's also cutting out a lot of, the set designers and stuff, so there is a huge kind of trust that it's going to work.
Yeah.
And knowing they're going to get what they've been promised.
Totally. Well, I wonder in that sense, is it a bit more budget-friendly in a way?
Depends on the size.
Sort of depends, yeah.
Once you start looking at replacing countless sets and storage space and fabrication, absolutely. I think for those sorts of shows, it's definitely a huge cost saving, but there is a balance.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, let's talk about your creative process, because I'm not techie in the slightest, and I know that in all elements of the creative fields, like we all have our different processes and ways of, I guess, being inspired. So what does that look like for you?
It's different per show. I try and take as much from the director or whoever's the creative vision at the front to try and keep in line with their original vision. And then with my own stuff, I like minimalist more, like the less going on, you can get a lot more out of. I think like blackness is definitely something to be utilised.
Yeah.
Rather than filling up all the screens with bright colours, you've got nowhere to go.
I totally agree.
Especially for the music festival stuff, less is definitely more.
Yeah. You don't want to overwhelm all of those.
Yeah, because once you've turned everything on, the only place to go is turning it off again. And then, in terms of the process, I don't follow a set process, I don't think, every single time. I've kind of got more breaking down what's needed and kind of the priorities. I think, especially in the live industry, compromise is the biggest thing. You're meeting deadlines. You don't have the luxury of just working on something till the end. So you kind of got to decide what's going to get you across the line the fastest, what you can kind of get out the door as quick as possible, and of the most value.
And when you get approached for like a project, say, if someone gives you a proposal, do you prefer to have like, okay, this is the brief, these are the colours they want, I'm going to make that? Or do they just kind of go, hey, here's the vibe, just make it happen? Do you have a preference?
I do. I get pretty caught up about the right kind of directors. There's kind of a happy medium between the ones that just tell you exactly what they want. So there's no space for you to do anything. They're just going to tell you how to do the job, or the ones that kind of tell you, go nuts. I've found a few directors that I've worked with on a few projects, and we, almost without speaking, we can work together. It's a very, very hard thing to find, but once you have, that's when it's easy to create.
Yeah, it's like a creative zap, right?
Yeah.
It's like a little connection, and
and they know what to tell you and how to cue it, and they know when you understand something, and you know how they think and what they want. So a lot of unspoken stuff, but easier to stay on the same page then.
Yeah.
The big thing at the moment, I think the big drive and the excitement is around the real-time aspect of it.
Yeah.
Previously, to create something, you'd be rendering stuff overnight, it'd be 12 hours to see how a new take's going to look. And that's going to be the big change. Behind the LED screens is the engines driving them.
Yeah.
So to be able to see a change instantly and go, can we just try it in a different colour and then rerun an item or have it change on the fly is huge in terms of creative development and the process.
So finally, you have built an epic 360 of one of these in the studio of the Alex Theatre. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you've been doing in there?
It's a weird combination because a lot of us from the live events have had nothing to do. So I guess that's been the perfect storm of timing when all this text kind of really matured and we all kind of came together and went, let's just play with it and see where it goes. And so I've been going through a lot of testing. There's people all over the world kind of testing this at the moment. And there's a good network of people sharing. So as we kind of find things that do and don't work, it's developing across the whole world at the moment because I think a lot of people are in the same situation. And I mean, these screens were sitting around doing nothing, so the guy that owns them has been very, very behind them just out doing something.
Just get it out there.
And so we've had some cool toys to play with for the last 6 months. And we've been working on, I guess, the film side mostly, how it looks in camera and replacing the green screen element. So using the screens for a more natural kind of lighting, so kind of sky dome lighting, and replacing the green screen keying and actually having it live in camera, which is huge. A lot of people are very excited about it.
Yeah, and from the performing side of things as well, it's so hard sometimes to, as an actor, visualize, you know, like, okay, look at this stick. This stick is, you know, a alien baby. You have to interact with this stick. It makes it so much easier to have something that's kind of moving and shifting perspective-wise in front of you. So that's
been
super
the interesting
exciting.
thing. Because I've kind of seen people resist new tech a lot of the time. So I was surprised at how quickly this got picked up. And I can't say it's still green screen, but it's actually a step back towards real. So I think people are embracing it a lot more because it's a step away from fake as opposed to trying to be more fake. I think the whole industry's gone really heavily into the green screen CGI movies. And this is still, I guess, CGI, but in terms of acting and filming, you're taking a step back towards traditional techniques. A lot more is in camera. You're relying more on the film crew to do the work.
Definitely.
So I think it's definitely being embraced a lot more and very quickly.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you so much for coming in. I'm really looking forward to see what you come up with in the future.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Matt.
Cheers.
Early on in the year when the lockdown first occurred, parts of the entertainment industry were closed down, which affected many companies that supply the industry, such as venues. Pro Screens, who supply LED walls to the venues, decided to explore other markets that were less affected by the lockdown. Phil Ross from Pro Screens is here to tell us what they discovered. Hi Phil, how are you today?
Great, thanks for having me.
Awesome, thank you so much for being here. Now I'm very excited to chat about what you do at Pro Screens as well as these amazing screens that have been set up here at the Alex Theatre. So tell us a little bit about the company. When did Pro Screens get started?
Ooh, I've been around for a long time doing AV, but originally it was sound and lighting, and then I got a bit bored of that after a few decades.
Yeah.
And so about 6 years ago we jumped into LED, but the timing was very important because the technology's been moving very fast. Every 18 months a screen falls out of, you know, the technology's moving so quickly it becomes redundant. And so what I was using 6 years ago I wouldn't even touch now.
Yeah.
So you've got to pay it off very quickly because it's a business at the end of the day. But yeah, about 6 years ago was when they were just starting to get high enough quality to use in the event space and really make a difference, where people were sort of saying no more projectors.
Yeah.
We want to go LED because it's got that punch, it's got that brightness, it's got that contrast. And then about sort of 2.5, 3 years ago, this high-res sort of stuff started really becoming financially viable, and suddenly here we are.
Yeah.
With this great stuff. I mean, even 6 years ago, it wouldn't have looked this good.
No,
you can see in camera, it just wouldn't have done that.
It's incredibly
so the
sharp.
timing's very important.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure you guys can see how sharp this looks from your screens too.
Hope it looks good in camera.
I think it looks good in camera.
So, well, obviously, you know, we had some of our busiest months in March earlier this year. We had it cooking. We were everywhere. The teams were going everywhere. We had staff everywhere. We had so much going on. And we had a whole lot of new product. New lead had come into Australia with my latest shipment. And we were having a fantastic time of it.
Yeah.
And then suddenly COVID hit. And I was up in Sydney doing Parmasala with Matt, who I think you've spoken to. And I was doing a few shows. I was doing a film premiere and a few other things up there that week. So I had my work cut out for me. And then we had all the Melbourne guys, and then we had somebody up in Queensland. Anyway, I look on the news and there's this virus thing really starting to kick off, and I'm like, oh, this doesn't look good.
Yeah.
This doesn't look good. This doesn't look good. And I knew our industry was going to be in real trouble. And within about a week of that, we came back for Grand Prix. We had all these jobs lined up for Grand Prix. We'd actually set them all up, and then the Grand Prix got cancelled that day, or the day before actually, I beg your pardon. But we'd set up for the week, and boom, it was all over. We're not in deep hibernation with our business. We're just in holding pattern, but it's very expensive to hold it there. And I'm thinking there's the possibility of a vaccine. It's 90% effective. There's possibility of herd immunity. We don't know, but we aren't going to get events back until we're done with this virus.
Not at least on a large scale.
No,
yeah.
They're not going to allow 15,000 people to gather.
No.
And I don't think that's going to happen in 1 year. I think that's possibly 2 years away. Possibly.
Yeah.
So we're out. I can't just put my life on hold for 2 years. I mean, I've already lost 7 months just waiting for events to come back. So as great as they are, everybody who works in that industry, and there's a lot of depressed people, there's a lot of mental health issues there.
Oh, 100%.
I've spoken to a lot of colleagues who run businesses who do from staging to pyrotechnics to ways, all the different guys who work in that industry, and girls. And the business proprietors, they're just losing money hand over fist.
Oof,
so they've got to pivot. You've got to pivot or you're in trouble. And I'm like, what the heck am I going to do with these LED screens? Who wants a massive TV when we can't have lots of people?
Yeah.
And then suddenly a filmmaker who came along, and he said, well, there's this new technology out, right? And I'm like, oh, all right, give us a look. And when he first showed me virtual film production, and this was only a couple of weeks after COVID had hit, so this was in April, and I thought, oh, that looks amazing, but that's way too complicated, and it really is hard. The barrier to entry is very, very difficult for this. And at first I dismissed it, and so he went off into the wilderness, and then I was thinking about it, and this COVID was getting worse and worse, and about 6 weeks later I called him back. I said, you know what, Eddie? Let's give this thing a crack.
Yeah.
Let's give this thing a crack. So we set one up in here originally, and then we kept building and building because we realised we couldn't do it properly until you have that full 360 thing. You have to walk inside. This isn't just a flat screen.
Yeah.
You're not on 2D. It's not even a 3D picture. You're inside an environment that moves. Just imagine you're playing a game on your goggles, if you've ever used a VR headset.
Oh, amazing.
Well, you're now inside that, and you can move around, but it's all light right round and the roof, and it's all there. And so we realised, originally we did it like a semicircle, and realised that just wasn't going to cut it. It wasn't giving the light off, it wasn't immersing the character in that environment. We had to build 360, we had to go the full way. So there's a lot of people doing this, but the LED's so damn expensive, and everyone wants to know how much it is. Okay, this wall here is probably about, with all the processing and all the bits with it, $250,000 just for this guy here. But there's about three to four times that amount next door, right? So it's about $1 million to get you started.
It's
right?
yeah.
It gets you going.
That's small fee, but makes sense.
So not many people have those resources around. So a lot of the other studios that are setting up around the world are using much smaller amounts of LED. They just don't have the resources there to be able to do these big volumes, they're called, when you finish them off. So there's me with my background in LED and doing events and setting up tricky things like that with my guys. There's the filmmakers that come in with all their expertise, which is a very different industry. But then the third side of it is all the tech guys. And within tech, that breaks down into two parts, because you've got the tech guys that have to get the cameras talking to the screens, talking to all the tracking systems and all the VR side of it. But then you've got the other side of the tech guys, who are the creative guys who have to build these environments.
Yeah.
And when you see an environment, a basic environment might have 100 hours of man hours in it to build it. But a really sellable, photorealistic, right up there, film quality sort of environment, hundreds of hours. So you might put a team of 6 guys on it for 3 weeks, and they finish off an environment to that level.
Yeah.
When you see those guys. There's a lot in it.
There's and you read my mind, because I was going to ask you, what is the process like for actually creating? And that sounds intensive, like several people.
So there's a lot to it, and they're very creative.
Yes, definitely.
But they're also very fast. You see these guys work and start doing, what takes them 100 hours would take me 3 months.
Yeah.
So I don't get behind the keyboards. And, that's they've all gone to school to learn that. They're all these creators.
Beautiful. Jonathan Raymond, who works in the corporate world of production, is very interested in LED screens and how they might change our productions in the future. Tony Bove spoke to him earlier.
Hi Jonathan, thanks so much for joining us.
Pleasure to be here.
Now your history is as an ex-ABC journalist, yeah?
Yes, I was originally, after uni, a ABC News journalist here in Melbourne, which I did for some 5 years before crossing to the dark side and becoming a corporate communications advisor, eventually ending up in a company that was global with offices in Melbourne, around the world, but I was lucky enough to go and work in New York for a while, which was a total buzz.
Fantastic.
And whilst I was there, I saw things which were new at the time, video news releases, where the economics of free-to-air television was such that you couldn't throw a press conference and rely on all the networks turning up. So what was happening in the States was that the corporate producer was doing the interviews, just as you are, Tony, shooting the overlay, loosely editing it, and punching it out online to television news stations, where they could, just like an electronic press release, use and choose as they wanted. They didn't have to spend any money to get the material.
Getting free content for their program.
Exactly, and it allowed the corporate to control the media agenda, because if there was something really interesting, and there's nothing as pure as these are the grabs from the CEO. This is what he wanted to say.
And it would have been current.
In our market, which is the corporate video production, which could be to an internal or it could be to stakeholders, it could be to the stock market or TV news, as I say. But what the audience is looking for now is something that's visually arresting, because if you want the corporate to get its corporate message across, it needs to really capture those eyeballs. And frankly, I think the market is just so sick of tired, old, bad chroma key, the zoom. We are zoomed out.
Yes.
So there's a real need to get those production values back, and that's how you're going to communicate in future. That's why we're very excited to be here at Alex Theatre.
Yes, because recently relocated to the Alex Theatre because part of what's going on, which is lots going on here at the moment, the introduction of the LED screens in both studios now, which are looking fantastic. You know, this is just, I think, a new one that's come up in the last week in the second studio.
Tony, it's the one good thing to come out of COVID lockdown, that we've had time to really look at what the industry needs, and Pro Screens have set up here 2 studios with these wonderful ultra high quality LED screens, and now what we can do with those for the corporate market. But I guess the original reason for coming to the Alex was that it's in the heart of St Kilda, which is great. And there's a creative community here. We have people who, obviously from the theatre background, we have actors, we have presenters, we have producers, we have people who can edit, and that's a really exciting thing in this day and age, to have that creative community that we can apply to a particular communication issue. Well, this is what we can do for the corporate market now with this technology, with ultra high quality LED screens, DMX lighting. It's all here in one place. So this allows us to cut costs out of a production. Because even in the setup and the post-production, we can do things so much more efficiently here.
I have noticed that the time-saving element involved with using them, because it's drastically cut back editing time.
Indeed, and
which is sometimes it's, you know,
time is money, and from our client's point of view, if we can get the CEO to do one production here, and we can move him around the world with our backdrops and create something, as I say, that is visually arresting. The knockout visuals can communicate the message, or really help, because it's a very competitive field out there.
It is.
And so if we can create something that saves costs, saves time, and saves on travel in this climate, I think that's a very powerful thing to do. What we're aiming to do is to use the facility, to use the technology, and transport viewers. And if we can do that, we've done the right things by our clients.
So 2021, I think we'll be kicking some A.
There's a take on the Nike philosophy. I think here at Alex, it's let's do it.
That's it.
And that's what we do.
We're getting better at it. Good on you.
Cheers.
We'll be better off for having you here too, so can't wait to work with you.
Great, thanks, Tony.
Thanks so much for your time, Jonathan.
Hey Charlotte, how's it going?
Hi Sham, I'm good. How are you?
Good, it's good to see your face on our massive LED screens. But yeah, what's it like for you up there?
Up here is pretty quiet. I mean, I'm on the north coast of New South Wales, so there's not actually a lot of theatre sort of stuff happening up here anyway. The closest thing to me would be Hotter, which is the home of the arts up on Gold Coast. They've just opened up a big facility there, and they are looking to open up a gallery, so that's pretty exciting.
Cool.
I think they had a few shows as well happening, a few musical things, a few dance sort of events and plays, but yeah, not a whole lot, not in comparison to Victoria, and everything's opening back up again. And, I mean, I've seen that the Melbourne Fringe Festival is opening up now, and it looks like it's going so well. I remember us talking about it a couple of episodes ago, thinking, oh, is Fringe going to happen this year? And
yeah. It's been really great. It's been really great to see like how many artists have kind of stepped out of their comfort zones and made work for like the digital platform, as well as there are a couple of shows that are in person.
I've heard that the theatres in Sydney as well, a lot of them have released their new seasons for 2021, which is so exciting. You've got Sydney Theatre Company putting out a season, Bell Shakespeare as well, Belvoir Street Theatre, Griffin, they are all releasing their seasons, and it's so good to see, and I hope that a lot of the theatres in Melbourne are following suit as well. I mean, I'm thinking realistically, probably shows will be happening about May unless, you know, there are some really productive companies that are, you know, getting their shows up and running sooner than that. But, you know, it's just so, it's so, like you said, inspiring that people are really coming together to create awesome new things for the Melbourne audiences post-COVID. It's great.
Awesome. Well, great chatting to you as always, Shah. I'll see you next time. That's all we've got time for today. So if you want to contact us, send us an email at ideas@studioemedia.com.au. Thanks for watching. See you next time.